Okay, so you have the beginning of Unit 4. This is types of data. I forgot to put the lesson on it. Darn it. This lesson is 4.0. So this set of notes is very quick. It is not stapled. The only thing that you will turn into me is the CFU, since they're not stapled. So when we're done with this, just hand in this part. You can keep this part. They are numbered, though, so hopefully that helps. Okay, types of data. Hopefully from scatter plots, this sounds familiar enough that this is easy for you. Statistics is the science of data. And any set of data are trying to tell us a story. However, to hear what the data is saying, we kind of need to pull that story out of it. So we need to help them tell us their story by organizing the data, then displaying the data, and then summarizing what you see. So after summarizing is asking questions. So we organize, display. We should probably ask the questions and then summarize, but this or that's data analysis. That is what most statisticians spend their time doing. So like I ran some data analysis on your test scores, especially because we are going to look at it in the next class period. We're going to hopefully get to some of it this class period, but really the most interesting part of the data from your test has to do with what the scores for kids that have missing and late work looked like. So some of the data that I was analyzing this morning was for each grade, so A, B, C, D, and F, how many of those students in each grade on the exam had missing or late assignments. And one thing that was really interesting to me was that 0% of the kids that got higher than 90 had a missing or late assignment. Every single one of those kids turned in their assignments on time. That was the only grade category for which that was true. So the A category had 0 late or missing assignments. What do you think the F category looked like? Yikes. Like 70% of those students had missing or late assignments. So that is the process of data analysis. That is me just simply taking your scores and looking at, well, did this student have any missing or late, and putting it in a graphical display and being able to see, yeah, there's a relationship between getting your homework done on time and being able to be successful in the topics that you're studying. So that is the whole purpose of this class and of statistics. So once we actually delve in and start looking at the actual data, the individuals are the things that are described by a set of data. So for me, the individuals were students. So individuals may be people. They might be animals. They might be things. So it's like an individual is like a noun. What is a noun? Person, place, thing. So essentially individuals are nouns. They can be people, places, things, animals, so on. A variable is anything that you want to know about the individuals. So the variables come from the individuals. So those are characteristics of the individual. So characteristics. looked at 2 variables this morning for your guys' tests. I looked at grade and missing late work. So I looked at 2 variables or 2 characteristics, and those were your letter grade on your test and whether or not you had missing assignments for only the work that applied to that specific test. Characteristics, now to add in one more layer, or variables, can be one of 2 kinds, categorical or quantitative. Now scatter plots is only quantitative. So what we're focusing on, and hopefully you noticed it a little bit on the tab that I brought you, this very short unit, this unit is very, very short, is on categorical variables or categorical data. So categorical variables place your individuals into one of several groups or categories. So for my data that I ran this morning, you were placed into a group based off of your letter grade. You were placed into a group whether or not you had missing assignments or did not have missing assignments. Other examples are gender, zip code, handedness, etc. One thing to notice about all of these are that those are words. We are describing our data with words. So all of those things, words. They cannot be averaged. You cannot find the average gender. You cannot find the average handedness, meaning left-handed or right-handed. And even though it seems like you could, you cannot find an average zip code. You can't find an average color. It just doesn't work. So categorical variables are words. Quantitative variables are numbers. A quantitative variable takes numerical values for which it makes sense to find an average. And that is the key on this particular kind of data. You can find an average. GPA, CPA, age, score. If I would have looked at your scores, I would have placed you within a quantitative data analysis. But remember, I wasn't looking at your score, I was looking at your specific grade. The proper method of data analysis for a variable depends. So proper method depends on whether it's categorical or quantitative. The type of data determines the kinds of graphs and which numerical summaries are appropriate. So interestingly enough, down below on the quantitative side, the only one that we can really see there that we know of is the dot plot. But scatter plots would fall into the the quantitative group. So I lined these up so that they match. So essentially this is 2 columns. So all of these graphs on the left are categorical, and all of these graphs on the right are quantitative. So to some extent, they are made to match. So maybe I'll draw a line there. So these ones are all categorical graphs. These ones are all quantitative graphs. And the quantitative graphs are a doozy. Holy shamoly. That unit is like 10 years long. I called this unit bar graphs because bar graphs are the most common thing you see in categorical data. So this is like an old school bar graph. This first one you see, old school. Notice down on the x-axis, words. So in this case, it's a student and their score on something. This guy, he's a pie chart. You can also call this one a bar chart. You could also call this a pie graph. Chart and graph are interchangeable. These guys are the best ones. They're a segmented bar graph. Segmented. Meaning your bar has different segments. This guy, this guy. You know him, he's a two-way table. He's the same two-way table that we saw in the probability unit. Hopefully now that we've done probability, the two-way table work that we have to do is easy for you. I think anything's easy compared to probability though, so. But we spend most of our data analysis with the two-way tables. And what I was running data analysis on this morning was a two-way table with grade across the top and yes, no, late work, missing work down the side. In this case, your category, so I should have mentioned this on all of these. Here, this was from last year. This is the breakdown of ABCs for first term for AP Stats. So my categories are letter grade. Here, your categories are age group. So not an age group. So 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18. You could also think about that as like youngest, middle, oldest. And then down here, what they're investigating is your gender and what kind of car you own. Your options are SUV and sports car. Who are we assuming is going to be getting the sports car? The males. Who's getting the van? The females. So we're going to investigate that. This is next unit. This is our trusty old dot plot. Easiest, quickest, but only if your data's small. If your data's got like 700 people in it, you ain't going to want to do a dot plot. You're going to want to do one of these, and this is a histogram. This guy over here, if you learned it in elementary or junior high, is a stem and leaf plot. We just call it a stem plot. It's similar to a dot plot, except for that you can actually see your data values. So instead of seeing dots, 3 dots on one, you would have 3 ones here. And then the last guy, he's the best one, but sometimes the most annoying. He's a box plot. This guy at the very bottom, when you were younger, he was probably called a box and whisker. We just call him a box-a-rooney, a box plot. 2 types, one's words, one's numbers. We're focusing in this unit on the words only. Couple practices. Example, Jake is a car buff who wants to find out more about the vehicles that the students at his school drive. He gets permission to go to the student parking lot and records some data. Later, he does some research about each model of car on the internet, and then finally, Jake makes a spreadsheet that includes the model, the year, the color, the number of cylinders, the gas mileage, so meaning like my car is supposed to get 30 miles per gallon, the weight, and whether or not it has a navigation system. So, Question 1. Who are the individuals in Jake's study? Who are we gathering data from? Not students. The cars, and even more specifically, what cars? In his parking lot. So who are our individuals? He, the cars in the student parking lot. And you guys are used to this from our sampling unit, where when we had to talk about the sample and the population, we had to be like as specific as humanly possible. What variables did Jake measure? And I identify them as categorical or quantitative. So here we have weight, that is quantitative. You can average weight. I would just write a Q. So then the first one it says up in the problem is the model. Well, model is a word, so that is categorical. I cannot give an average model. Does this make sense? Okay, you find the rest and go in order. Let's take like 30 seconds to a minute. You think about 30 seconds is enough? Was that a yes? About 10. Five. 3. 2. Okay, I have only 2 quantitative, and that's the cylinders and the gas mileage. The year, you would not average. You would not average a year. That wouldn't make sense. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't make sense. We're okay on this set? It's the next set that's a little bit more challenging. So you are preparing a study, or you are preparing to study the television viewing habits of high school students. Describe one categorical variable and one quantitative variable that you might record for each student. So in regard to television viewing, what might be one thing that you want to know in each category, or each type of variable, I should say. So think about it. Okay, so mine are preferred streaming platform for my categorical. So do you use Hulu? Do you use Netflix, YouTube, Apple, Disney Plus, whatever all the options are, Fire Stick, Amazon Prime, there's a lot nowadays. 2, average time spent each day in hours. So notice I'm not asking the time spent each day, because very rarely do we spend the same amount of time every single day. Like maybe one day it's 3, and then the next day it's 5, and then the next day it's 4, and you would average them all up and give me one number. You could also make this a categorical variable by putting them into groups. So time spent watching each day could be in a group. 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 4 hours, 5 to 6 hours. Are there any in either group that you guys want to share that you came up with? Don't be scared. What? So if we're going to do gender, what else might we be interested in knowing? Like, what do we think, a better question is, what do we think would be different about the genders? The genre of TV show that they like. So maybe the girls are watching all the romancy life ones, and the boys are watching all the die ones. Whatever those ones are. I don't know. Yes? Oh, yes, yeah. Yes or no. We could do a yes or no type situation. What would we want to know yes or no to? Maybe we could do, well, there's lots, but Iragi? Woo! Do you have a TV? I love that. You guys are the best students ever. What about preferred type? Do you like to watch episodes or do you like to watch movies? That might be a good one. The hard one is quantitative. Did anybody come up with a quantitative one that they felt good about? Yeah. Family income. Think that's great. Number of streaming devices in a home. A yes or no could be, do you have a TV in your room? Do you have access to your own streaming device? Something like that. Those are a lot of really good ones. Do you guys feel okay about these? Okay. I just need to hole punch your second set of notes. So while I'm doing that, you guys can get started on the CFU that goes with this. It's pretty short, and it is similar to what you're seeing. One that I just want to mention real quick is it asks you about these students in a statistics class, and it gives you their gender, their handedness, their height, the time they spending doing homework, their favorite music, and how much money's in their pocket. And the very last question says, describe the individual in the highlighted row. What they mean by that is they want you to describe that student. So you would say the student in the highlighted row is Mel, left-handed, he's 62 inches tall, and he spends 10 minutes on homework every night. His favorite music is alternative, and he had no money in his pocket. That's what they're expecting you to do on C, on the one that's on the screen.